when I initially came across it, it was the fact that it was a story about these three women that in a particular point in time had this kind of power, but also their characters and their personalities and how that affected a whole country or the fate of thousands or millions of people. So it just felt like an interesting thing to explore.
And the comedy of it, you saw right away because it is a very dark-hearted comedy.
Yeah, I guess thinking about what would be the most interesting way to approach this. Well, I think humor in general is something that I can't get away from, no matter what the material is.
Please don't try.
I guess, yeah, it was a given for me from the beginning.
We'll open it up to questions from the audience right now. If you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll wait for the, yes, wait for the microphone. Is there a microphone here? Here it comes.
The title of the film is a favorite, and I wonder, how did you everyone see what is the major favorite of the character, perhaps, or the story in this movie? Is it like Sarah is a favorite, or it is Anne, or it's a love, or it's a lie that it is equivalent to love? Because there's more to the story, and perhaps you, Mr. Yorgos, get deep into this, of the favorite of this title and how everyone saw it.
That's a great big question.
Who's the favorite?
Everybody name their favorite character in the movie.
Not just the favorite in terms of the title, but in terms of the way you saw the characters.
I guess the whole point is exactly what you're expressing, that, you know, we're looking for a favorite, or how the favorite functions within this world, and what it means and all that. So obviously, if we had a straightforward answer, we wouldn't make this film.
Maybe the screenwriter, Tony, if you could.
Maybe you know better.
I think it's what Yorgos said. I mean, it's a battle to be the favourite, and it's a battle to be our favourite. And, you know, it's a court which is sort of a contained world, and so your power is sort of, I think Nick's character talks about favour is a sort of malleable thing, and it's a, you know, it's a wind that comes and goes. So the idea of all these people being subject to trying to be the favourite and trying to be in favour, and even Anne trying to find someone she's the favourite of, and it just seemed an interesting dynamic to us for a film, and really complicated, and so yeah.
I think it was fine, was it? But then I wasn't the one having to sort out any continuity. But it was lovely. Em and I are both mad animal lovers, so we had a lovely time. I can barely remember our lines on a day when it was a rabbit day. And to try and keep them in the corner, because those rooms were vast. So there was a sort of a pen with lots of people holding up bits of cardboard to keep them in the camera bit of the room. I didn't see it as a problem, but then I wasn't the one having to sort anything out. I loved it.
No, actually, it was quite, I was surprised, but it was very simple. They just fell into place most of the times. The only thing we had to do, as Olivia said, was just to restrict where they were, because they were huge rooms. But I thought it was going to be a nightmare, like it usually is with animals, but they just seemed to, you know, enjoying themselves, just hanging out, and it all fell into place.
Emma has a remark about the duck.
The duck was more difficult to.
Also, rabbits aren't house trained. They pee a lot. Yeah. So in that bed, you kept going, ooh, I can feel a wet patch. I mean,
from reading the script and being there on the days that we were there, you could sense this, you know, insane world that the characters were a part of, and the madness of that. But what I found really powerful was the things that I wasn't there to see being filmed, and these three leading ladies' performances, which were actually very tragic and heartbreaking in amongst that, and how sad it was, and the emotion that came from that. So that was the big takeaway from me, because that's something that I wasn't witness to on set.
I loved it too. Yeah, like Em said, and Nick, I was aware when you're there, I knew Yorgos was using these kind of fisheye lenses, but didn't really get the full impression of what that was going to look like until obviously I saw it, so I knew he was creating a slightly skewed vision, but there was obviously no looking at the monitor or nothing like that, so until I saw it on the screen and with these chapters and with the music, it was all new to me.
Yeah, I had no idea what lenses they were using. So I watched them and
The historical character that you play is pretty unique. I mean, obviously all the actors can answer, but the historical character that you play is pretty unique. And yes.
Well, I mean, I was the only American in the cast, and so that I didn't really, probably know the extent of British history. I would think that you guys know, or no, they don't know. So, yeah, no, I mean, I did a bit of research. I read about Sarah and Queen Anne and the little that you can find about Abigail, but the nature of their relationship wasn't really completely understood, and so I just sort of went with whatever they said.
Yeah, trust us, it's true, it's all true. No, but the reality was that we, the historical aspect of it and whatever facts or we knew or are assumed about the period, we took them as a starting point, and then we were just interested in creating this particular world and this story around these three women, and not be necessarily loyal to the specific events or the specific politics of the time. We tried to actually simplify that part of it. So we would focus more on the characters and through them understand in a way that it's relevant to any period how people in such positions, according to their character, behavior, mood, can actually affect very important events in history. So we focused on whatever we thought was necessary and interesting for us to tell that kind of story, and then we veered off in many different directions from there. Contemporary elements in the film. One of them was dance and the physicality in general of the characters and the actors. But we just felt like sometimes in subtle ways, sometimes not so much, that we would incorporate textures that felt more contemporary, starting even with the language from the script stage. We didn't try and make the people sound the way we thought they sounded like back then, or the way we assumed they spoke. So from making that decision, using more contemporary language, the dance, the costumes, that we tried to stay loyal to the shapes of the period, but then used quite a few contemporary fabrics and textures, to music that is sometimes true to the period and sometimes quite contemporary. So there were all these elements that we were using to add a more contemporary texture to the film.
Maybe I'm just like a big overgrown teen. It's just enormously fun. When you get that script and Yorgos says to kind of do whatever you want. So yeah, no process, I'm afraid.
We had a rehearsal period.
Oh, I'm so sorry, we did. There's a lot of process involved. So sorry. No, we did.
Which was very silly, but we did do that.
Oh no, that's true. Yes, we did all of that. Sorry, you should always ask Yorgos, don't ask me.
Lord.
This is what I have to do.
I don't really know. I think in a way maybe it's when I'm sort of randomly, we didn't really focus on one, but if I think that moment when Anne sees the kids playing their instruments and drifts away from Abigail, and that leads into the dance, and that connects them in a much bigger way, but it also shows a sort of deeper sense of Anne's tragedy and sort of how mentally sort of unstable she is at times. That's a kind of key scene, I suppose, for me anyway, in writing it. That is all.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't have answered that question because I think, you know, making a film, and especially with 3 main characters, it has such a journey and such a process, and it depends for every different person how they experience the film and how they engage with it, and so I think it is and should be a different thing for each person, and I wouldn't really know.
Then the other part of the question was how the actors let go of playing these characters, and I would imagine that for every actor that's a very different kind of answer.
We just did. Just let it go. Except for the thing was, I mean, at least for me, we'd spent so much time together. We all spent so much time together that I was incredibly sad when it was over, because I just wanted to be with everybody. So.
And to feel genuinely quite bereft at the end of the filming. I think we are probably going to be friends for life. I know people say that a lot, but I think it's probably bollocks a lot of the time. But we really did have a genuinely lovely time, didn't we? In fact, Yorgos sort of set that up, I suppose, because those weeks of rehearsal and playing, you know, we got to see, I'm recovering now, I'm pulling it back, did mean that we could all be unembarrassed in front of each other and play and become really good friends, which was lovely.
Nicholas and John, want to chime in?
In terms of finishing, I mean, didn't feel like it wasn't a big kind of an emotional part to cleanse myself of at the end. It was just sad finishing. It was such a fun shoot to be a part of with such an amazing, brilliant group of people, and such a refreshing, different project to what we read or do. I just had so much fun, so it was just sad letting go.
Yeah, I agree with that. The process was so different to what I'd experienced in terms of the rehearsal period, even right from the audition actually with Yorgos. I was like, this is bizarre. And it carried on throughout the whole film in a great way. So yeah, we all got to know each other really well. We'd dance every morning and get into tangles with each other and all sorts of weird things that, like, it just makes you, yeah, very fast friends and very close friends in a brilliant way. So, and in terms of the character, I do want to go back to the costumes very quickly, because Sandy would very kindly teach me to walk in heels, which was very difficult, and that was probably the most perilous thing for me. I'm not very good at that.
What was the bizarre part of the audition?
Well, there was a scene that I was still didn't really know that well, and then Yorgos would ask me to hum whilst the person I was reading with would say their lines, and then I had to imagine imaginary force fields around the room and like sculpt them and things, and sculpt the person I was reading with, but not let it affect how I would do. It was one of those ones where you walked out and you were like, I did everything, and I don't know if they're just laughing at me, but and not let it affect how you say the dialogue as well. And there were lots of games like that through rehearsals as well. Which, I'm not sure entirely how it affects the performance. You can maybe shed more light.
I have no idea. I'm just doing whatever comes to my head.
I was just asking him if I could tell about my audition, because I auditioned for Yorgos, and he had me breathe, like pant, like I was giving birth, just throughout the lines, and then there were times where I would just like take pauses in the wrong place. I think he just does this to everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're watching Hey You Guys!
Hey You Guys, huh?
Hey You Guys.
Is that from the Goonies?
It is indeed, yes.
Nice.
Hey You Guys!